I do.
Okay, I do as well. This will be about Voyager, everybody, in the chat, because we're doing an autopilot edition today. We're doing it 2 days later than usual.
Indeed we are.
You can blame my dentist. I certainly do. Let's see. CurrentGeek. Save. Yes. Okay. Audio's going. Time for... My mic is fruity. Hold on. What is that? I got some weird contact thing going on. Test. Here, say something so I can hear you.
The Montreal Canadiens and the Seattle Metropolitans won 2 games each in the 1919 Stanley Cup Finals before the series held at Seattle was canceled after all of the Montreal players contracted Spanish flu.
Oh my gosh. Is that true?
Yep.
Jeez. All right. I had no idea. That's crazy. All right. Okay. Here goes, everybody. What they say in Aliens? Drop your linen and start your grinning. It's time for the show. It's something like that. I don't know. And it begins in 3, 2, 1.
I have
Current Geek.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Current Geek. You may have heard of it before. Well, let me tell you more about it. It's the autopilot edition of the show. A chance for us to watch a pilot episode of a TV show, geek out about it, and more. I'm Scott Johnson. He's Tom Merritt, and this week we're talking about Star Trek Voyager.
There's coffee in that nebula, Scott.
Oh, well then we should go investigate, Commander Paris. And,
no, that was Janeway. Janeway said that.
Oh, I mean Captain Janeway.
Because like Picard liked tea, Janeway liked coffee.
Yeah, they kind of did. They had this little thing where they were like, hey, she's like the other side of the coin. And what if she liked the similar thing?
She doesn't like to be called ma'am. Just captain will do fine.
Yeah, that'll do fine, see? I don't know why I'm doing that voice, but she kind of has a little bit of that.
Her voice does tend to evoke that sort of transatlantic early 20th century accent a little bit.
It does. My Commander Paris, my hair is so tightly wound. I wonder if you might come over here. Like, it's very all up there in that register.
Yeah. Yeah. She's got that New England-y kind of feel.
Yeah. There you go. That's her. Hey, it is Voyager. We've never done Voyager on the show. We've done a lot of other Star Treks, but we haven't. Yeah,
back in the old version of Autopilot and the modern, we've done, I believe, Deep Space Nine and the original series.
We did. I don't think we did TNG. I would have remembered that.
Did we do TNG?
Well, it was that big 2-parter with Q and everything. I think we would have. I don't know. I'd remember that for some reason, but maybe we did. But if we didn't, we should.
I'd like to think I'd remember it.
Yeah, at some point we should do it if we haven't done it. However,
it's almost like I could call up the doc and find out.
I mean, it takes some more searching and some work, and I don't want to put that on you, but I do want to talk about Star Trek Voyager, a series that started in 1995 and ended in 2001. And Tom, from a anecdotal perspective, would you like to know why I remember 1995 so vividly when it comes to Star Trek Voyager?
Because that was the year you bought a Harley Davidson.
No.
Oh.
You're so close, though. Here's the reason I remember it. Because the premiere would have been one of the first times that I can recall, I'm sure there were other examples of this, but that I can recall a relatively massive pop culture phenomenon happening where I could be in a chat room, watch it, and communicate with a bunch of other chatters at the same time in, quite literally, America Online is what I was using.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you chatted about Star Trek Voyager. It doesn't look like we did anything but Star Trek, the original series.
We've never done DS9? That surprises me.
I was misremembering. We did The
Cage?
Babylon 5.
Oh, Babylon 5. I'm probably conflating that. Yeah. I think we also did Stargate.
Everyone.
Or did we do Stargate? We need to do Stargate if we haven't.
I believe we did do Stargate.
I don't remember.
We did Stargate SG-1.
Okay.
It was the 3rd episode of Autopilot.
Okay. At some point, we may
Star
do.
Trek was the very first episode of Pilot, then Autopilot, then Battlestar Galactica, then Stargate SG-1, then Quantum Leap.
Okay, see? I remember all that.
First season.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But anyways, there I sat in 1995 in a room that was titled Premiere or Star Trek Voyager Premiere. It was a room titled that. AOL had one set up, and you would go in there, and not terribly unlike what we do at Twitter these days with big premieres and things, we kind of live chatted as the thing went on. So a new character would come on and people would be babbling about, oh, I wonder who this is, or I don't think that doctor's human. I think he's a computer. No, he's not. He's human. What do you mean he's a computer? Like, I remember all of this stuff really vividly, and I was like feeling very nostalgic about it, but I realized I don't really need to. This happens all the time now. That was just sort of the beginning of my time in pop culture, internet-assisted fandom. But it stands out for me for that because nothing before that was really like that for me. For some reason, it was that particular show that night that really kicked it off. And never forget that. It's a very, very odd memory for me, but I like it. It feels good and warm, like a cozy blanket and a dog.
You know, I dated a woman in Champaign, Illinois, who was really into Star Trek: The Next Generation. We were both very excited when Deep Space Nine came along and we got more Star Trek. We moved to Austin, Texas together, and we were excited that Voyager was going to come into our lives, and then we broke up.
Jeez.
So I don't remember watching the premiere episode of Voyager, but I can't remember. I don't know if that's because I repressed the memory or I was sad. But I definitely remember I did watch it. I just don't remember where or what the circumstances were. And on the other end of it, when Star Trek Voyager went off the air in 2001, I had just moved in with my soon-to-be fiance, Eileen Rivera, and introduced her to the best episodes of Next Generation and Voyager. And she liked Voyager. She's like, wow, this is really pretty good. I like this. Sadly, she then went on to watch Enterprise with me, which wasn't nearly as good. But yeah, so it kind of Voyager, all the Star Treks kind of span important periods of our lives, I think, those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s. But Voyager is the story of me putting my life back together. Deep Space Nine kind of covers the part of my life that was my hardest, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. You can break it out like that. I would also say that Voyager is the one Star Trek show that you could probably mark and go, that's the last of this kind of Star Trek. And by that, I don't mean, that's the good Star Treks or not. I don't mean that. I mean, like, the tone, the music, the approach, the direction, the carpet. like that whole era of Star Trek, you can say started with TNG and ended with Voyager. And then after that, we were just never going to get that again. Like, we've never gone back.
Well, Enterprise, for good or ill, forget about whether you like it or not, it took a different tactic, right? It was a prequel. It was before the original series. It didn't have like the sweeping orchestral open. It had a pop song. The vibe of the ship was industrial. This is the early days of space exploration. Things are rough. So it wasn't meant to have that same tone as Voyager. And you're right, Voyager. I mean, the closest thing we've had to Voyager since Voyager is the no, man, I'm blanking on the name of the new show. The
Discovery?
No, the comedy show.
Oh, sorry. Yes. The Orville. Yes, I agree.
Orville. Yeah. Orville is very much parodying the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager aesthetic.
Yeah. In a way that lives on in that. That's a really good point. Also, I think I think that even like Galaxy Quest, the movie, was more TNG era than it was riffing on. I mean, it riffed on all Star Trek, but
in style, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, there were definitely riffs that pointed directly to Shatner and Nimoy and crew, but the style of everything was very much more TNG, right?
Yeah, and people continue to look at the Orville as kind of their Star Trek, even though plenty of us like Discovery. I think Discovery Season 2 is really good. But it's not that same kind of Star Trek. And I really do think a lot of people imprinted themselves on what was late 80s through late 90s Star Trek. And that was Trek for them and forever will be Trek for them. It's their favorite movies. It's their favorite look. It's their favorite captain, whether it's Picard or it's Janeway or it's something in between. I guess in between would be Cisco. But you know what I mean? Like that was your Star Trek, and nowadays it's going to be hard to replicate that. Partly because that you don't make that stuff new now unless you're doing parody. The Orville gets away with it because it's parody, but then it can actually be very Star Trek-y within it, and they get away with it, which is kind of cool. But you can't start a new big budget, high falutin Star Trek series and say, and it's going to be filmed just like Star Trek: The Next Generation through Voyager. They don't exist. That's not going to ever happen again. Like that's just not a thing.
And the same way when they brought Next Generation out, they didn't try to film it like the original series. There was enough time between those two that they realized that would be silly. People they needed to recapture people and get a new audience if they were going to succeed. So they had to make it look modern. Of course, it doesn't look modern to us anymore. It looks very 80s, but the aesthetic persisted through the 90s because those shows were so successful. And so you could slowly update them. At this point, yeah, Discovery has to look different, partly because it is also a prequel. It has to look a little more like Enterprise than like Next Generation, but also because it's just new, which is why they play so fast and loose with the canon and the design of things, because they know if they really were canon and made it look like halfway between Enterprise and the Next Generation, people would have more problems than they do with what they do now.
Yeah, that's true. And also, some people point at Battlestar Galactica and say it's your fault that our science fiction can't be less shaky cam and less serious and dark. And
it's never anybody's fault.
I agree with you.
Right?
I agree with you.
I mean, you could just as easily point at TNG during Voyager and say it's your fault that everything has carpet and sliding doors. It's like, no, that's just the aesthetic that seemed to work, and everybody tends to imitate an aesthetic that works because you know what, it works.
Yeah. Here's the problem though. Today, network-wise, there isn't any kind of major science fiction that's on regular terrestrial television. Yes, Star Trek is a CBS property, but it's only on the streaming. The Orville, I guess, is the one exception. But again, it's like they got sneaky. Like they came in and said, "Hey, what if it was a kind of a jokey joke?
It's a comedy."
Yeah. And they were kind of McFarlane famously, who was in Voyager, by the way, was in a Voyager episode back in the day, or no, maybe it was Enterprise. I thought it was Voyager. I can't remember. Anyway,
I think it's Voyager. Yeah,
might have been, but. They think, it's all comedy. It's Seth MacFarlane, it's Family Guy. That's what he'll do, and he did, but then kind of got to do his dream job, which was let me run Star Trek, which he famously asked for once, and no one would let him do. So now he's kind of running Star Trek in a weird way, just under a different name, with a slight layer of humor, but mostly it's Star Trek.
He's proving that you can recapture that aesthetic. He's proving that all the things I said earlier are wrong.
Right.
You can not do shaky cam. You can recapture the aesthetic that was 80s and 90s. But I think the reason it works is because it's presented as parody and comedy.
Yeah.
If it was not presented as parody and comedy, I think it would get rejected.
And it's
but
successful.
People accept it because they say, "Oh, okay, well, I'm not supposed to take this that seriously, so I'm not going to get all worked up about the fact that it looks dated in some way."
Right. And it's successful enough to get, what are they, on their third season now or getting ready for it? Like,
yeah.
It's like, it's not like it was an experiment that crapped out. It actually worked. So
it's a Trojan horse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty much making a straight science fiction. There's some jokes here and there. But it was a Trojan horse of like, it's a comedy so that we can get it made. But then when we make it, it won't really be that funny.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, I get ahead of ourselves. We should talk about the origins of Voyager, where it aired, all that stuff. Let's get down to it. You're usually pretty good about telling me where it came from and who came up with it. What's the deal there?
Sure. It was premiered on January 16th, 1995 on UPN, directed by Winrick Colby, story by Rick Berman, Michael Piller, Jerry Taylor, teleplay by Michael Piller, Jerry Taylor. It was created by not Gene Roddenberry. This was entirely, Deep Space Nine was also mostly not Roddenberry, but he had been alive during its development. Right. Voyager was entirely from the new crew. So this was something that was developed by Piller and who did I say?
Rick Berman. Yeah.
Yeah, Rick Berman, Piller and Taylor. And the idea was to kind of take it away from the space station. get back to some of the things that they could do with Next Generation. When they went from Next Generation to Deep Space Nine, they wanted to have a location they could tell stories around. Roddenberry had always been insistent that the conflict couldn't come from the humans, so having an alien space station was a good place to bring in conflict from outside. They had planted the seeds of Deep Space Nine into Next Generation, and they did the same thing with Voyager. The reason we meet the Maquis and Ensign Ro in the Next Generation is they planned to have the Maquis play not only an essential element in Deep Space Nine, but also in Voyager. They wanted Voyager to be shot on the backs of that Maquis dispute on Deep Space Nine being not resolved, but playing into these crews coming together. So the idea was in Next Generation, we'll introduce the Maquis conflict in the Cardassian space. In Deep Space Nine, we'll develop that as the central conflict for Deep Space Nine to have to deal with, because you've got these Maquis settlers who don't want to play by the rules. And then in Voyager, we'll have a Maquis crew and a Federation crew have to work together and overcome their differences in order to get back home. What I think is really interesting about that is it worked great. The development of the Maquis in TNG and Deep Space Nine played out wonderfully, so that if you were a fan of those two, when you watched Caretaker, the first episode of Voyager, you understood immediately what was going on. On the other hand, once they got together, it's kind of just went away. Like, that first season played with the idea that the Maquis weren't getting along with the Federation folks as much.
Yeah.
Certainly in the subplots about B'Elanna Torres becoming chief engineer. But after that first season, you barely ever dealt with the fact that they were Maquis. I mean, Chakotay just sort of came back into line. Like, yes, you're the captain, Janeway, no problem. Yeah, they had no problems here. We need to get home together. And that's actually a criticism of Caretaker itself, is that once the crews are agreed that they will pilot Voyager together, the Maquis do seem to just kind of go under Chakotay, like, all right, fine, great, let's do that.
Yeah, Chakotay becomes one of the more, how do I put this, noble and trustworthy of first officers in Star Trek history. And he does it from the angle of he worked as a terrorist, but now he's cool, and was a little jarring. Like, I remember that being a little jarring. I remember thinking, wow, this conflict isn't that big a deal. In fact, in this pilot even, the Maquis, and maybe it's because so much time has passed. This is pre 9/11. Our concept of terrorism is different. So even our science fiction space terrorism just seemed really limp to me. Just really like, we disagree on a couple of points, and so we're gonna, like it didn't.
Part of that was because Roddenberry had really pushed the idea that conflict couldn't come from humans. So I think they were taking baby steps towards even that idea being around. But also, they wanted to tell a nice TNG story about a Federation crew trying to get home.
Right.
They also were trying to set it up as two different crews trying to come together. And those are kind of incompatible stories. And in the end, they decided, well, we won't use the Maquis problems as much because that gets in the way of telling the story about the Federation trying to get home.
Yeah. I just remember thinking that was a bigger deal. So watching it this time, their complaints seemed just limp and kind of dumb, and like it wasn't really.
I think also they were more fleshed out in Deep Space Nine, and if you're not in the middle of watching Deep Space Nine for years, and then you see this scroll, this Star Wars like scroll that just reminds you, like, oh right, the Maquis, it doesn't land as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's talking about transition. So they did the same thing when DS9 launched. They had a crossover. In that case, it was Picard talking to Sisko about his new command, and so you ended up with some Patrick Stewart on there and some Enterprise and stuff.
And some flashbacks to the Borg attack and all of that.
Right. So you had a very sort of cohesive transition, and then same thing happens on the back end of DS9 toward the back end of it, where you're in Quark's bar and Amron Shimmerman's there playing Quark, and
it's just Armin. Why are you having problems saying Armin?
I always say Amron. Why do I say Amron?
I don't know.
I don't know why I say that. I met him in Vegas once. He was very
nice.
nice.
Quark.
Yeah, he was very nice to me in Vegas. Q was not very nice. I went to a convention. Anyway, long story short, that's a cool scene. Like, I like that transition. I like my Star Trek when it passes a baton and everybody kind of moves on. But then you're kind of left with this feeling of, who are all these new people? I don't know you. you don't seem very interesting. I don't know about this Tom Paris. He played a different character in a TNG episode where him and Wesley back at the academy cheated and it got somebody killed. And Wesley finally came forward and told the truth, and that other guy went to space jail or whatever.
Which, I mean, they could have just made that Tom Paris's backstory, right?
I wish they would have, honestly. Yeah. It would have thrown me less, because at the time I went, no, I know this guy. He is in trouble. Is it the same guy? And I start kind of wrestling with it in my head. And he's just kind of creepy and smarmy and hanging around the female
He bothered
crew.
me less this time around, and this is probably the dozenth time that I've watched this, but he bothered me less this time around than usual. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's just maybe
He bothered me a lot the first time I watched it. I just did not like him.
Yeah, first couple of three seasons maybe, Paris is my least favorite character. It irons out in the end, and he's fine. But early on, the standout for me was Tuvok. As soon as Tuvok comes on the scene, I dive all in on him as the Vulcan security officer. Totally into it. I loved his role as he was with the Maquis, but was like faking it and was working undercover. And now they all have to work with him now. Is a great term because he's not emotional. Like, it's just a great use of a Vulcan in general, but also the fact that I forgot the actor's name. Anyway. You have a black actor playing a Vulcan. It's a very unusual choice. I think a great choice. Brings a lot of diversity to the show. You have your first female captain, which was pretty huge at the time in 95, it felt like. And, like, I'm pretty good rolling with those guys. Chakotay would grow on me later, but it took Paris years for me to even want to go near that dude. And
were you trying to think of Tim Russ?
Tim Russ is, yes, he plays the Vulcan. He plays Tuvok, and he's awesome. Tim Russ is really good. He also, small piece of trivia, both Tim Russ and Rene Auberjonois, who plays Odo in Deep Space Nine, both those guys played Klingons in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, during the coup, during that little coup scene where they're trying to take over the presidency of the Federation. Anyway, so they are no strangers to Star Trek. They just finally get a real...
And then Tuvok is old enough, because he's a Vulcan, that they do some flashbacks in future seasons of him in the old Star Trek movie era uniforms with the braids and everything.
Which is awesome. And he's just great. I just cannot say enough about Tuvok, and his role, I think, is one of my most favorite Star Trek characters of all of the series combined. And I think he'll probably stay there because he's just great. I love that guy. But do you have anybody who stands out for you? Like, Janeway's a little over the top. Her style, anyway. I don't know if it's...
Well, I mean, in this episode, I actually end up loving Janeway by the end of this series, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have any problems with Janeway at all. I really like this cast. It's one that's hard for me to tell you who I like the most because it changed throughout the run. And I've grown to really like characters that I didn't like when it first came on. I was not a fan of Tom Paris back then. Doesn't bother me at all now. The Doctor. I hated the Doctor because he's even more annoying than Tom Paris, because he just went. I'm like, wow, really? You didn't program your Doctor with a better bedside manner? Come on, he's the hologram, for goodness sake. I used to think Harry Kim was too I don't know, too goody two shoes. And I don't think that anymore, because I feel like this crew as an ensemble cast works so well together. And a lot of that just has to do with them staying together, just like any of the ensemble cast like TNG or Deep Space Nine. You don't lose anybody except for Jennifer Lean.
Yeah, Kess leaves.
Jennifer Lean leaves after 70 episodes, and Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9, steps in. That's really the only major cast change you have across this. You don't have the big major death in season 1 like you did in TNG. You don't have swapping out the Doctor for a season like you did in TNG. Deep Space Nine also had some, had a Dax change towards the end. So
right.
Kess leaving after 70 episodes, I felt was well explained. 7 of 9, I think they did a great job of using the opportunity to not just replace a cast member, but come up with an entirely new kind of character to put in there, and everybody else just gelled. So it's a long way of saying I don't know that I can pick a favorite. Maybe it's B'Elanna. I don't know. It's hard to say.
She's really great. It's cool to have a take on a Klingon that's just a little bit different. It's not just your standard Worf anymore. She's female. She's half Klingon. Like, there's a lot there to really dig into, and she makes for some of the best storylines in the series, I think. So I agree with you there. I loved 7 of 9 at the time. We don't get her till season 5 or 4 or something. But
yeah, till 97.
And Jerry Ryan's
season
awesome.
3.
I have nothing but good things to say about her. But my problem at the time was, my problem now looking back on it, is it's a little gimmicky. Like, it's a little bit of like, guys, we really need to bring in some kind of actiony. I don't know what the
7 of
term for it
9
is.
you think was gimmicky?
A little, like just a
I
little.
mean, certainly her wardrobe was gimmicky. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to whitewash that.
Right.
They put her in a catsuit for a reason. But I thought the idea of a Borg that you are slowly teaching to assimilate back into human society, and how much harder that is when you want to give people freedom, it's really well told.
Oh yeah, no, that stuff's cool. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's probably the best seasons of the show. So I sound like I'm contradicting myself. It's just, I look back on it now and it feels like, well, were they lagging in the ratings? They felt like they had to bring the really attractive Borg lady on. Or
no, I think
sick?
Jennifer Lean just wanted to leave the show.
Yeah, and maybe that's all it was.
I may be wrong about that. I don't remember.
In her case, I think she did just want to leave. Or she's an interesting person. You have to go read up on her.
Yeah, she had her own problems.
Had her own stuff. But
television
Neelix should drive me crazy. Neelix should be the Jar Jar of this show. But somehow Neelix is fine for me. Don't know why.
Well, and it's like
works.
Voyager just gets better the more you watch it. I think it gets a bad rap. Like, imagine if Shades of Grey were the only TNG episode you ever saw.
All right.
You'd be like, what is this? Is a dumb show. And season 1 of TNG is a lot rougher than people want to remember. I think people didn't give Voyager enough of a chance sometimes, because these characters get deep over the course of 7 seasons, and they tell really good TNG level stories.
Yeah, and he's, by the way, Ethan Phillips doesn't get enough credit. That guy's awesome. He played him, but he's been in many other things. You've seen him 1,000 times. But another fun little side trivia: Ethan Phillips was one of 2 Star Trek actors who used to be on Benson, the sitcom. And that was
along
him.
with Rene Auberjonois.
Yeah, him and Odo were used to be on that thing together. And so I always loved the idea that they kept putting Benson people in Star Trek from then forward.
That was just kind of, I think we're starting to get used to the idea of movie actors showing up on TV and TV actors making the change to movie. But back then you didn't do that. So once you were in the TV world, you just kind of cycled around into various TV shows.
Yeah. Someone, Fool to Dream in the chat, says he was a Ferengi. No, he was not. I forgot the name of his race, but it's some other wackadoodie,
Who? Odo?
Neelix. No, Neelix.
Oh, Neelix. Yeah.
I don't know. I remember the name.
Talaxian.
Thank you. That's it. Oh yeah. Look, you got to get your Talaxians separate from your Ferengis.
The Talaxian fairy tale. I made a Talaxian stew. Like, yeah.
He was always cooking, and he had a galley.
Fool to Dream wasn't saying he played a Ferengi in Voyager. He was saying that Ethan Phillips played a Ferengi in The Next Generation.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. Because I'm pretty sure that Amrin Shimmerman. Am I saying
Armin.
Armin,
like Armin Hammer.
Armin Hammer Shimmerman. I'm pretty sure he also played another Ferengi, not Quark, but played another Ferengi in TNG as well, which is great. I love that. Anyway, not really that important, but main point is, like, I should hate that character. Neelix is usually my kind of sidekicky, why did you put him in here? This is a bad idea kind of character. And I think he is full of the kind of compassion Star Trek needs. He brings in some of the best stories, and he's more like us than we're like some of the humans in a lot of ways. He's just freaking great. So hats off to Neelix.
Now, did you know that they started shooting Voyager on September 6, 1994, with the scene set on Deep Space Nine with a different Janeway, Captain Nicole Janeway.
Can I guess who played her? Hold on, let me guess.
Genevieve Bujold.
That's it. I knew it. I was gonna guess, and I wouldn't have got it, but I knew it was a French actress, and she's pretty good, actually.
Reportedly, she and director Winrick Kolb disagreed over her performance. Bujold insisted on playing the role in a restrained manner, at least more restrained than Colby wanted. And if you look around, you can find these. They were put out on a DVD, on a special DVD at one point, and she is really restrained. I think I see what she's trying to do because she's French.
Yeah.
And so I think she's just trying to play the almost stoic captain, like a Kirk-esque captain. But when you compare it to the Catherine Janeway performance from Kate Mulgrew, it just doesn't compare. Like if you watch them back to back, Bujold just seems like she's, walking through her scenes. And I don't think she thought she was, but it's just not dynamic. It just didn't work with the way Voyager was supposed to be going. So they went out on September 9th and called back some actresses: Joanna Cassidy, Susan Gibney, Elizabeth Dennehy, Tracy Scoggins, and Lindsay Krause, as well as Kate Mulgrew. And Kate Mulgrew got it.
So were all the rumors that Lindsay Wagner was up for that role? Was that all?
I've never heard those rumors.
I'd heard at the time that she was supposed to be the captain and fell out very last second.
No, that was Genevieve Bujold.
Well, that's true. Obviously, now we know that. But at the time, in like 95, like literally, I remember then reading on message boards.
That sounds like early versions of fake news on your news group or your AOL chat room.
Did. My AOL news group was lying to me.
Yeah.
But I swear Lindsay Wagner had something to do with Star Trek, and it was all going to happen, and then it got yanked away. I'll have to look it up, but I mean,
that is definitely the kind of thing that a 1995 AOL chat room would eat up, whether it was true or not.
Yes.
Because Lindsay Wagner was still a relevant actress at the time.
Plus, she was just awesome. She was just starting to hit an age where she would have been like a really formidable captain. And I didn't know this Janeway lady. All I knew her was from an episode of Cheers, where Kate Mulgrew was on Cheers once, and she was one of Sam's many exploits. And I thought, she can't captain. And then she was great. She was fine. I liked her a lot. And she's really good on Orange is the New Black. If you haven't seen what Kate Mulgrew can really do, that's a good place to catch it. Anyway, all the captains now. We've got them all, Tom. Let's talk about the important captains. Forget about what happens post the Enterprise, okay? So we're going to go from Star Trek Original Series through TNG all the way end of Enterprise. Who is Tom Merritt's favorite Star Trek captain?
So we're not including the captain from Discovery.
Nope. And you can't count Pike. Well, I guess you can count Pike because he was in the original.
I could count Pike. He was in the cage.
That's true. He was just so good as Anson Mount's Captain Pike was so good in Discovery that
but
I think it's cheating.
I can't count Anson Mount's Pike.
Correct, because I think he would win. Is my personal opinion.
Only Jeffrey Hunter's Pike.
Yes,
which isn't as good as Anson Mount's. I'm sorry, I hate to say that, but
it's true. It's just true. It's just true.
And I can't count Gene Roddenberry's Robert April because it never actually made it to screen.
Correct. We were not able to see it, therefore he did not exist.
We're not counting Chris Pine's Kirk.
No, because he's in movies.
Because that's an alternate universe.
Yes.
Okay, so we're saying Pike, original Pike,
yep.
Jeffrey Hunter Pike. Kirk, Picard, Sisko, Janeway.
Yep.
Who's my favorite?
Or Archer. I guess you could put Archer in there.
Oh, and Archer. Sorry.
Yep.
I guess that is a bit of a spoiler that I forgot Archer. I actually didn't hate Enterprise like a lot of people do.
I thought it was all right. I think it was getting better and better until they yanked it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we're leaving out like some of these people weren't captains. Like Sisko was not a captain when Deep Space Nine started, and obviously lots of them ended up becoming admirals later and all of that.
Sure, and Sisko became captain later, right?
These
but
are
he was
people who were main captains.
Yeah.
What's the question again?
Who is your favorite? Who do you like the most of all the leaders? Let's put it that way.
I don't want to admit it because it just feels like the obvious answer, but Picard by far is my favorite captain.
Yeah, it's hard.
And maybe
to deny.
I feel this way because I feel this way, but isn't he everybody's captain? Like,
yeah, I think so. I think there used to be a really strong contingent of apologists for Kirk, but I think that mostly that's true. I think Picard owns that spot. How could it not be? Like, it has to be. Now,
where I will get controversial and expect people to disagree with me is Janeway is my second.
I don't know if that's controversial. I think she's probably mine.
Oh, I think that's if I'm not picking Kirk in the top two, I think a lot of people just have already shut off our Twitch stream.
I mean, Kirk has the one advantage of being original and the first one that you knew and all that. So that's exciting in its own weird way. But as far as like his actual captaining, if you don't count the movies, which I'm not doing, if you're just looking at the 3 seasons of the original series, he's not as compelling as a captain, I think, as these others are. Now, if you combine them with the movies, Kirk gains points. He also loses some points if you watch 5, but he gains some points.
It's hard for me if I keep ranking them because I love Cisco. I mean, his vibe is just so much more badass than any of the other captains.
Yeah, it took a while though, right? Because he was rough up front. Not great first season, I didn't think.
I actually like him better as Commander Cisco than most, but yeah, he really comes into his own in those later Deep Space Nine seasons. I almost say that Kirk's my fourth.
Look at this. Oh man.
Yeah.
See, Frankie in the chat just says Cisco, Picard, Archer, Janeway, and then Kirk. That's a very
then Archer, then Pike.
I couldn't put Cisco ahead of Picard.
Again, not Anson Mount Pike, because then Pike has to go up this list.
Yeah, if it's Anson Mount Pike, he's probably second place right now for me. He's real good. But Picard is the man.
Can I include Captain Sulu?
Hold on, I'm going to remember the ship because I know it. He was captain. Eventually, he was captain of the. He shows up in the ship in the third or the final Kirk one, and it's called the Excelsior, right?
You read that in the chat room.
I didn't.
You didn't? Okay, yeah, you got it right.
Oh, someone said it. I don't know if that's actually true. Is it true? I said it kind of jokingly because I think the Excelsior.
Well, Fool to Dream agrees with you.
Oh, okay.
Put it that way.
All right.
Anybody want to contradict these two? Scott Johnson and Fool to Dream?
I always had hoped, like when they announced Enterprise at the time, I was like, oh man, you know what they should do? They should do Excelsior and have him. Just have him back in that time when they were all kind of wearing still the movie style Trek stuff. Let's have a new crew there where he's the captain. That would have been amazing. The USS Shirtless Sword Wielder. Well done, MacBook Pro. Well done.
So what about you? What's your captain?
Oh, Picard all the way. I think if I'm going from there, it goes Picard, Janeway, Cisco, Kirk. I think we're the same. I think we're the same, aren't we? We're the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just realized we actually have the same list.
Yeah.
If you can include people from the movies, I'd put Chris Pine in there somewhere. I think he's pretty great. If you can include new stuff,
that's just too complex.
Yeah,
it's a little bit apples to oranges.
Yeah,
to start trying to compare them. If I had to add Anson Mounts Pike in there, I'm like, do I shove him in above Janeway, below Janeway? And then what does that do? The rest of the list really does get complicated.
Because if you want to get real complicated,
but Picard's my number one. Like, there's no doubt about, no matter what we're counting, Picard is by far my number one. I'm so excited for the new Picard series that's coming to CBS.
I can't wait. We should do an autopilot of just that, of our first show that just comes out. We should do that. We should watch that and then do an autopilot about it. We've never done
instant
that before.
autopilot?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I like that.
We'll make one exception for everyone's favorite Starfleet captain and make that a deal. Once again, though, watching Star Trek Voyager has made me want to finish watching Star Trek Voyager again. There's a lot to like, and I think I'm going to do it.
Did that. I rewatched all of Voyager and finished right before we moved, actually. So early last year. So just a little over a year ago. And I've been watching Space Nine since then.
Right. Who can someone in the chat remind me who was the captain of Discovery in the first season? What was his name?
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name too.
Really great though.
No spoilers, but there's a reason I want to not remember his name a little bit.
Yeah, there's a problem there. But initially, a strong outing, right? Like
good character, good actor.
Sure.
Yeah, good performance, all of that.
Yeah, all that stuff was great.
Yep.
Anyway, that's a fun exercise. I always like to once in a while look back on Star Trek and think of those things. One of my favorite things they ever did was similar to what they do here with a little bit of crossover of characters and stuff. But
Lorca,
Captain Lorca, thank you. Jason Isaacs, who's awesome. Anyway, they do a thing in. I just thought maybe I lost my train of thought because now we remember.
Ms. Pumatastic knows NFL history and Gabriel Lorca's name. That's pretty impressive there.
Now, who's Captain Ed Mercer? Why can't I think of that?
What?
She says Ms. Pumatastic mentions Captain Ed Mercer, but I don't know who that is. That sounds like a captain Oh, that's from Orville.
Oh, okay. She's throwing him in.
Yeah, that's fine. I think people can do that. I know there's a very strong push out there
Well,
to
they're
say
not in the same universe, but you can say like I'm going to include Mercer
Right.
in my list of favorite captains. And then you're just widening the net.
Yeah,
That's all.
I just think it's a little unfortunate. A lot of people are sort of putting a flag in the ground, going, "The Orville's my Star Trek. Forget this dumb Discovery stuff." I really like Discovery, and I think it's okay that we have
They're
kind of both.
different things. You can like them or not like them both,
Yeah.
or one or the other,
Yeah,
right?
I don't have any problem with it. More the better. Bring on Picard. Bring on the cartoons that are coming. The other series they're working on with
Not
Michelle
my
Yeoh.
captain. Hashtag Instagram.
Yeah, I don't need. I have enough things I have to pick teams for. I don't want to do that anymore.
Oh man, I don't want to. Yeah,
And I'll tell you know what? In
I watch hockey for that.
there you
That's
go.
what-
Sports is where that's for. That's actually a great construct for where humans should get that out of their systems because the rest of life doesn't need it. And I remember, see, this is maybe heartening, I guess. I remember in '95 sitting in that chat room and listening to people fly off about stuff they didn't like. Female captain, or I can't believe they got a black guy to be Tuvok, or that. Blah, blah, blah. I remember all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, humanity didn't change.
No, it didn't. If anything, we have gotten better. So it's easy to look at, the internet and go, it's just all noise and anger. And it is sometimes, but it's not really that different. It's just bigger, like a bigger window, but the people are the same. And I take comfort in that.
On It's a Thing, I decided that hockey is the Canadian heat sink of rage.
Whoa.
The heat sink for Canadian rage, which is why Canadians are so polite, because they have hockey.
They're the thermal grease of anger.
It just takes all that rage away.
Somebody, Essential Tremor says, we want to see John Goodman as captain. I actually was thinking about this the other day. After I watched it, I thought, who would make good captains that we never got to see, or who would today? And I would have liked to have seen, in this era, the Janeway era, I would have liked to have seen Sam Elliott as a captain of a starship.
Mm-hmm,
Just kind of a laid-back Texas drawl captain would have been my pick for...
Meryl Streep.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, that's
I know
really
it
good.
probably feels like a waste of her talent, but she would just kill.
No, she would totally kill.
And she killed pretty much anything, I guess. So
Kelsey Grammer, I could see that, although he was in TNG, one of those weird episodes where I can't remember what happened, but there were like a whole bunch of
oddly,
enterprises.
I think Nicole Kidman
Oh, yeah, Nicole Kidman could do it. I could see that, sure.
could do a certain style of captain.
Right. Do you think it could be, they don't do anyone young anymore, right? Like if you're going to be captain, you have to be the seasoned one. So that's a
Lupita
good...
Nyong'o.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's actually really good.
Maz Kanata, but human and a captain.
I'd follow her orders.
Yeah.
Totally would. Michael Keaton, sure. Ed Begley Jr., that's not going to work. You can't have Ed Begley Jr. in there.
Not anymore.
Oh.
Wasn't he in TNG?
Maybe. I don't know.
Or am I imagining that? Maybe Ed Begley Sr. was in TNG.
TNG did have a guest star magnet going. It was always having somebody weird in there. Not weird, but you'd have some pretty interesting people in there. Ooh, Chris Evans would be good.
Natasha Lyonne.
I can't think of who that is. Who's that? Natasha. Why do I know that name? Hold on.
I'm gonna. You have a search engine?
I do. Yeah, I know. I use DuckDuckGo, in fact. Let's see. Natasha Lyonne. Natasha Bianca Lyonne Bronstein, better known as Natasha Lyonne, is an American actress. Best known as Nikki Nichols.
Russian doll. That's
Oh, Orange is the New Black, Russian Doll, all that stuff. All right. American Pie. I know her. She's great. She'd be more crew, though.
Oh, yeah. She'd be really good.
I think you put her in engineering and just give her a wrench and make her a badass. She's my engineer. That's who I want her to be.
You know who would be great?
Yeah.
And I don't remember her actual name. Jane the Virgin.
Oh,
What is
right.
her-
I also have a
called?
search engine for that. Jane the Virgin.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Her
But I
name
can't find her name
is
because she was in that weird trippy show with Natalie Portman, the movie, based on a book that I love that I can't remember because I'm old and I can't remember any names anymore. Gina Rodriguez.
Gina Rodriguez.
Rodriguez would kill as a captain.
Ah, she'd be great.
Based on her performance in that movie whose name I can't remember.
Yeah, she was good in Annihilation too. No, she'd be
Annihilation.
great.
Thank you. That's the movie I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, is that the one? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is fun. I'd love to.
Yeah, Gina Rodriguez playing not the Jane the Virgin type of character, but the kind of character she played in Annihilation as a captain. Oh, that'd be so good.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That would be
Get
great.
these mother effing tribbles.
I don't know why that one sounds so good, but it does.
Off my mother effing ship.
I'm in on that. All right, sorry. Back to Voyager.
Idris Elba, by the way.
Oh, Idris Elba,
also,
duh.
same thing as Meryl Streep, right?
Yeah,
You want to see him do pretty much everything.
He was great. He was in Star. What did he? Oh, he's the bad guy in the second JJ one.
In the third JJ one, right? Or is it the second
I
one?
don't think there's been a third, has there? Well, there was a third, but it wasn't JJ though. It was somebody else.
Well, yeah, it was the third of the JJ verse. You're right. It wasn't
of the
JJ.
yes of his arc. You're right. 3, but it's a different director. But yeah, the second one is the one with Cumberbatch is the bad guy, but there's another bad guy, right? Oh no, you know what? You're right.
Okay.
It is the third one. You're totally right. Tom is right.
That's what I thought.
Yep, you're right. I take it all back. Peter Dinklage, good idea. Tom Hardy, perfect. Actually, Tom Hardy was in Nemesis. It was his first role in Hollywood, so all hail Nemesis.
Maisie.
Oh, Maisie, she'd be great. Yeah, get some of those Game of Thrones people a chance. They're all very typecast now. Give them some roles.
I don't think Sophie Turner as a captain for some reason, but I like a lieutenant, commanding officer, first officer, or something like that. Yeah.
She's not really commander potential. Queen of the North
I mean,
potential.
I know
maybe.
she's a queen potential, but for some reason I feel like she's more of a.
You know who? Jamie'd be good, but let him have his own.
Nikolai Coster Waldo.
However you say his name, yeah, but have him do his. He's Swedish or Swiss or something. Have him be his regular accent. Don't make him British.
His Swishish accent.
We want a Swiss captain.
Now you're bringing up Katy Perry songs. Swish swish.
Yeah. Hey, Captain Katy Perry, Captain Perry to the bridge.
Taylor Swift, also not a captain. First officer, probably like navigation pilot, something like that.
Sure. I'm trying to think who would run our transporter room. So who's our Cole Meany here? Who's our Miles O'Brien?
Oh yeah, who's our well, that's so funny because there was no really character for running the transporter room. Scotty did it all the time on the original series, and then Cole Meany like turned it into something.
He did
on TNG.
He did. Then he went on to Deep Space and became just a general engineer. But I want like Danny DeVito or something in there.
Danny DeVito is not bad.
Yeah, just in there turning the thing, pushing the buttons.
Yeah, we might lose all your bits.
Yeah.
Kate McKinnon.
Oh, Kate McKinnon would be great. Get her on the Orville staff.
Oh, no. Chief engineer, Leslie Jones.
Oh, done. Deal. Okay. We've got it. We finished.
Kate McKinnon could still be the transporter operator or Danny DeVito.
Sure. Or you know what? Let's just go stick SNL. Let's say, I can't think of his name. I was only acting. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. What's his name? Oh, Scott, your brain. Anyway,
Martin Short?
No, freaking. Although he should be on the ship. John Lovitz. He should run the engineering.
Oh, John Lovitz. Wow, deep cut.
Like I said, it was like from the 80s. It was a long time ago.
I want Melissa Villaseñor to be in something.
Okay.
I don't care what. She's great.
You got a deal.
I don't think she gets enough time on SNL.
You got a deal.
But that's what us Melissa Villaseñor fan people always say. So
all right, let me ask you this. Do you think there is room for Voyager to experience any other kind of resurgence? Like, do you think Voyager, if it's looked at for film treatment or new cast, or are they forever going to be lost to just, hey, this was a TV blip and it's never going to be
I
TNG?
think where Star Trek is right now, that's probably impossible.
Yeah.
I don't think, unless sometime 50 years from now, they just start to try to redo all of these concepts, which I wouldn't rule out with totally new actors. I mean, that could certainly happen. But the best shot that I would think they would have had is if they decided to make movies in the future of the TNG verse and decided to bring in Janeway into that. Not Voyager, but, bring in Janeway, maybe Roxanne Dawson, as part of an ensemble crew of other people solving another thing. I don't think Janeway is got enough pulls, unfortunately, to do a Picard. I the way they're doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like they really have any interest in exploring the near future otherwise of that era. Maybe if Picard takes off and is really popular, then they decide to do more in that space. It's not impossible. Maybe Janeway appears as a guest appearance in Picard. I don't think that's impossible.
Right. I was going to actually
Voyager
suggest
as
that.
a whole, I just don't see him. Yeah,
I do as well. She gets back, and there is stuff in the movie. Which movie was it? 8, or maybe it was later.
Nemesis.
Was it Nemesis where she shows up and talks to him over the comm? I think that's the one. So we know she gets back, and there's a relationship there, a friendship.
Well, also we know she gets back from the last episode.
Oh, right, that's true. Yeah, but that's a good point. But there's no reason she couldn't show up in this Picard series as retired Admiral Janeway, or even still acting Admiral.
I'm not sure what the storyline is going to be. If the story dictated it, imagine she'd probably do it.
I would love that. I would really love that, because Kate Mulgrew.
To be motivated. I wouldn't want him to just shoehorn her.
Oh,
in
no,
there
no, no, no. Yeah, it can't be a stunt. I agree. It has
to be. There has to be a reason.
I totally agree. There was. There were.
Yeah, it can't just be the retired captain's old folks home, like unrelated thing. I would not like.
Well, hold on. What if the whole premise of the show was nothing but a bunch of old retired captains getting into mischief? That sounds all right.
No. The premise of the show is they're grilling Picard about his last mission.
I know.
I'm not. I know. That's what it's about.
I totally agree. That is what it's about. And which gives me
nothing to agree about. That's what they said it's about.
But that's what I'm worried about with this series. The series is going to be a series of flashbacks, and I don't know if I'm into that. I kind of wish it was not going to be that. Maybe it won't be. Maybe they're going to have a different.
I don't think the flashbacks are going to be that far back.
Okay.
I think the idea is like he's old, recently retired though.
Right.
So this is before I always get the name wrong of the last TNG. Is it Journey's End?
No, All Good Things, Part 1 and 2.
All Good Things.
Yeah.
It's before All Good Things.
Yeah.
But I think it's supposed to be near when he had his last mission.
Okay, so
unless they're going to de-age him, that's a expensive process.
It's entirely possible though, or they bring in some other actor.
They won't do that. I'm pretty sure they won't do that.
Tom Hardy could come back. Maybe not.
No, because we all know what Picard looks like young. They're not going to put some other.
No, you're totally right. Here's my pitch though. See, this is what you're missing here. My pitch is you call it After Trek, and it's a retirement home, less of an old folks home and more of a fancy place. But you got Picard, you got Janeway, Sisko, all the living captains. And some of the, Riker could be there. Data's head could be there or something. I don't know. Like different stuff, all these people could be there. And then it's just a comedy show. Like that's something they would have tried if this was the 70s. They're too afraid now.
So wait, it's a VA hospital for the Federation?
Yes.
And some of the members of the former show are there.
Yep.
Trying to recapture the
Sisko's going blind. Miles O'Brien's got early dementia. It's just hilarity ensues. Klinger. It is Aftermash that I'm describing, isn't it?
It is. You called it After Trek, for goodness sake.
Yeah, what was I thinking? All right. Well, there's your look at the fantastic pilot of Voyager. It's fine. We didn't get a lot of the story details today because it's pretty paint by the numbers. They really just need to establish.
Yeah, and it's funny. These shows are less about breaking down the pilot. I think that just kind of give us a launching point to talk about what that show meant to us. And I think we talked about that a lot.
Yeah, and it's suffice it to say it was actually a 2-parter, but I think they aired it all in one night. And
it was only it was a 90-minute episode that they broke into a 2-parter for syndication.
Yeah, and the way it worked, as I recall, well, no, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what they did. Then they broke it up later. So that's how I've seen it in both ways. I've seen it on TV and syndication that way. Saw it on UPN's premiere night while I was on that chat room, and then watching it here again felt more like that. But it really is kind of 2 episodes. It's this: let's get introduced to the Maquis exchange. And then later, let's get down on this planet and get used to the Kess, Neelix business.
The Kazon and all of that.
Yes. And then let's bring them all on the ship, and then boom, we've got our crew, we've got our show, and Janeway can have a little inspirational thing at the end. But I think I'm going to keep going. I dig that show. I liked it just fine. Kind of watched one.
It's one of my favorites.
I just want to watch Star Trek in general right now. I'm in the mood. So well done, Current Geek. You got me watching another Star Trek series for the 5,000th time.
I just watched the Deep Space Nine where they get sent back to San Francisco of 2024. It's so good.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
That's not bad. I'll have to go check. See, that's the other thing. Is which Trek show should I just keep going with?
Do Voyager because you're in the groove.
Because I'm in it. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because there's a big chunk toward the end that I missed that I don't think I've seen all the way through. And if maybe not, maybe I'll get to it and go, oh yeah, no, I have seen this. But I think there's some episodes I missed.
I thought that about Deep Space Nine because I went through the breakup with the person that I was talking about earlier in the middle, and I lost a bunch of episodes and never found them on reruns later. But I didn't really realize. I went back and I've now rewatched those 2 seasons, and I'm like, I don't know which episodes I missed.
Yeah, I thought this was true. Like I thought I'd seen every Seinfeld episode about 100 times, and I kind of have for the most part. But one night we're watching reruns on Hulu, and I catch an episode I've never seen. You just
don't remember it. Yeah,
that cracks me up because how is it even possible that I've not seen that Seinfeld episode? Well, all the rest I almost have memorized.
What's the deal with that?
What's the deal? Not that there's anything wrong with it. All right. Hey, Tom, before we go, a quick note that next month will be Memories of Alhambra.
Memories of Alhambra. It's a Korean show, so I'm not making you watch a Chinese show, but I am making you read subtitles.
All right.
And it's about a video game in Spain.
Whoa. All right, you've
talked
to me about
augmented
this.
reality video game, MMO, happening in real life in Spain.
And Netflix is where it's at. So y'all can get it if you got it. That's going to be next month's autopilot. Yep. Next week will be a regular news show, so looking forward to that as well. And don't leave too quickly because Legal Geek at the end of this show is going to be talking about Arnold Palmer as a drink brand, following up with some questions and discussion as in last week's Current Geek about this refreshing topic. Check it out. I just drank another one. I can't reach it. It's on the floor, but I've been going a little nuts on the half and half Arnold Palmer's here, and I don't know why. I'm a little drunk.
Thank you, Legal Geek, for following up on this. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Timely stuff. And Tom, before we leave the fine folks, a reminder, we are on Patreon. That's how we support this show. If you guys are over there already, huge thanks from us. And if you haven't yet, consider it. That's over at patreon.com/CurrentGeek. And we would be remiss if I didn't give each of us a chance to talk about other cool stuff we have going on this week. Tom, anything cool you want people to be checking out?
I do. I have a newsletter, and then you can ask me questions in response. The newsletter itself includes all the shows that I do every week. So if you want to find out what I'm doing beyond Current Geek, Daily Tech News Show, Sword and Laser, Let's Talk About Star Wars, all that stuff's in there. And I've been publishing some secret files as part of a writing thing. It's a novel that I've been working on that I'm releasing in a different way. They are confidential files that I'm leaking. Don't tell anyone, but you can find out more about that at freetomnewsletter.com.
Very nice. As far as stuff happening on my end of the weeds here, I've got a brand new card game that I made that is almost done with testing and sample deck creation. And it's not like playing cards. This is like a game that I made up and did a bunch of art for, and I'm super nervous about.
Like a tabletop.
Like a tabletop game, exactly.
Nice.
Simple cards, but you take it to a tabletop kind of event. That will be more of that will be showing soon. It's called Space Rocks Incorporated, and I can't wait to start revealing bits of this to people so they can get excited about it. I'm not doing a Kickstarter or anything crazy. Just going to have it up on the store when it's ready, and probably send a sample deck out to Tom to have him do kind of a final swing on the test, and a few other people I trust. So maybe we'll talk about it on here. We've had a chance to mess with it, but look forward to more details on that. I'll have a website up soon on Frog Pants so you can see more about it. That's called Space Rocks Incorporated. You can follow me on Twitter to hear more. I think that's going to do it for us today. Big fun in the Current Geek House. Hope you all enjoyed it. CurrentGeek.com is our website. You can always leave us news stories and stuff for our news episodes over at currentgeek.reddit.com. Currentgeek@gmail.com is our email address. Tom's at Ace Detect, and I'm at Scott Johnson on Twitter. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time.